Alright everyone, welcome to another episode of MotoMoney, where I cruise on my motorcycle and we talk about money. Today's topic is going to be a fun one. Fun for some, very scary for others. No, I'm kidding. It's mostly scary for just about everyone. Scary, but useful. It's kind of like a power saw. If you use it correctly, it could be awesome. If you don't, it could be the exact opposite. So let's get right into it. Today we are going to talk about debt and its ability to financially make or break you. Now right off the bat, most of the time when you hear the word debt, you don't really hear great things about it after. It's usually something along the lines of like a commercial coming on saying, hey, is debt ruining your life? Let's try and help you out. Or you'll hear about people battling their debt. It's like you just start correlating debt with like these horrible stories. And being honest with you, debt has really made that name for itself. In fact, I think it is a good thing to hold it in a very negative light, because it totally is something to be feared. That being said, it can also help you tremendously. So first question is, what is debt? What is this thing that is crushing people's lives and taking away their futures? This part is very, very simple. Debt is money that you have borrowed from a lender that you still owe them. A very common one is student debt. If I just graduated high school and I decide, oh, I want to go to this really cool private college and it's so fun and all my friends are going there, but then I'm looking at the tuition and I'm about to drop $60,000 a year, which by the way sounds insane, but it's so common. So I say to myself, well, I can't pay that up front. What do? The answer is I go and I borrow it. I borrow the money from a lender and then say, woohoo, problem solved. And then I go drink a million beers with my friends in college. And that's the end of the story. Problem went away, right? No, of course not. What happens is I get out of school and I'm like, oh, this was so fun. Life must be fun and exciting. But all of a sudden my lender comes, peeks its head through the door and says, hey buddy, do you remember me? Do you remember this sweet little face? And then I'm like, oh right, yeah, I owe this guy. Okay, how much do I owe you? And he's like, yeah, no worries. Hold on, let me just check. Looks here like you owe me $250,000. Huh? $250,000? What? $250,000? But how can that be? I had a part-time job in college. Tisk, people. Not cute, right? $250,000 is no amount of money to be played with. So then they take this massive number and they break it down into monthly payments. And a lot of times people can only afford to pay the interest. I mean, think about it. 60 times 4, 240. So you have $240,000 worth of debt. Even just 1% of that is $2,400, $2,400. If you break the interest of even 1% into monthly payments, you're paying $200 a month. That's disgusting. That's the payment on certain cars. And not to burst the bubble here, but you're usually not looking at 1% interest. You're usually looking at 3% interest. If you're taking out private loans, maybe it's even more. Guys, that means that if your loan has 3% interest, you are paying $600 a month just to cover that interest. You're not even touching the principal loan amount of almost $250,000. So you are forced to carry this weight around. This is why you see people well into their 30s who are like, yeah, I'm still paying off my student debt. It's sad, it's sick, it's disgusting. So this is just one example of how debt can absolutely spiral you. All it takes is one mistake, and you can be absolutely screwed. You better hope that you're making over 6 figures right out of college. And if you're in this situation, I really do feel for you so hard. I know it happens to a lot of people. Now, debt is of course not just limited to student loans. Debt comes in different shapes and sizes. We got credit cards, we got personal loans, we got car loans, boat loans, motorcycle loans. You have mortgages, you have home equity loans, home equity lines of credit, personal lines of credit. Oh my God, the list goes on and on. And then you have things called payday loans. Oh my God, please promise me you will never ever take out a payday loan. Please, just promise me that. So right now this is sounding like trash, right? Not so fast, my son. There's more. While we're covering these disgusting weirdo debts, it is so important for me to tell you that there's actually very beautiful sides to debt. And you're saying to yourself, what beautiful sides to debt? There's nothing beautiful about this. It's very ugly. No, my friend. No. So right now, I am going to tell you just 3 different cool ways you can use your debt to actually improve your life. And maybe, just maybe, improve your money. That's what it's all about on this channel. We're trying to get that guap, baby. Okay, so this first one I'm gonna throw at you. At first, you're gonna be like, what? Are you out of your mind? And the answer to that is yes, just a smidge. The first cool debt is, dun, 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 dun. Drum roll, please. Credit cards! I know, it sounds crazy because you always hear about people getting themselves into credit card debt and how it's a vicious cycle. Okay, so let me tell you why I say this. While credit card debt can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Ugly! You can actually use that borrowing power to save you some money. Now, if you watched my video on saving money, you know that anytime you spend, you are in fact not saving money unless it was something that you were 100,000% going to buy anyways. And that's where the credit cards come in. If you are responsible with your credit cards and not a dingleberry, you can actually use your credit cards to give you money back for the things that you are going to buy anyways. And I have to point this out right now. The only way this works is if you pay your cards off on time completely, in full. You cannot have a remaining balance because then the whole thing goes to crap. In the words of Gene Wilder and Willy Wonka, you lose! Good day, sir! So if you are going to do this, make sure you are not a dingleberry and you pay your cards off in full every single month. And if you are a dingleberry, that's okay. I've been a dingleberry. I've told you guys so many times. I've been a dingleberry for so long, but I'm done doing that. I'm done with my dingleberry ways. So keep it real with yourself. That's very important. Always keep it real with yourself. If you know you're not going to pay them off in full, don't do this. Because what will happen is you will crawl into credit card debt and it can take over your life. The interest rates are so much higher on credit cards than they are for student loans. So much higher. So if you can't do it, just walk away. There's absolutely never any shame in walking away. What there's a lot of shame in is taking a massive L like that. Okay, now that I threw that little disclaimer away, here's the cool part. There are tons of cards that will give you rewards back on your purchases. In fact, there's a whole bunch of cards that will give you opening bonuses. So if you have good credit, which you can watch my last video on credit, you will be able to get one of these cards. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. Apple Card is pretty good. They have some pretty good rewards. I'm not affiliated with them in any sort of way. It's the one I typically use. So let's break down how this helps you. Let's say that every single month you have about $700 worth of expenses. These are not your rent. These are not whatever. These are like bills, groceries, cell phone bill, whatever. Normally you pay these $700 and you take the L. Great. But now let's say you put it on one of your rewards cards and you got 2% back on these expenses. Whoa, you're making $14 a month. And that doesn't really sound like crap. But if you do the math, 10 times 12 is 120. Plus 4 times 12, 48. In total, we saved $168 that year. That could cover some expenses. That could cover like 2 months of electricity depending. It's minimal, but like I said in my other video, run your finances like a business. Businesses look to shave off whatever percentage they can. So does this mean you should go out of your way to spend $1,000 to get 20 bucks? No, that's what a dingleberry would do. Don't do that. Okay, so that's just one way we can make our debt work for us. Is it really debt because we're paying off our balances in full? Maybe only for like a couple days, but you are technically borrowing the money, so yeah. Okay, second way you can make debt work for you. This one is pretty sweet. You can use debt to buy a house. I know what you're thinking. Duh, obviously you take out a mortgage, you buy a house. Everybody knows that. But here's the thing. A lot of people think there's tons and tons of barriers to jump through when you're getting a house. And to an extent, there kinda are. But it's not that many more barriers than trying to rent a place. Nowadays, you want to rent a place, they're like, okay, let me see verifiable income. Cool, you need that for a house. Sometimes they take a look at your credit score. Cool, you need that for a house. Sometimes they say, oh, we need a cosigner. Cool, you need that for a house. Renting, they might say, we need first month's rent, last month's rent, and a deposit. Cool, you need a down payment for a house. And guess what? In a lot of places, if you are a first-time home buyer, the percentage you have to put down is much lower than 20% or whatever. Sometimes it's 7%. Sometimes it's 3%. Sometimes, guys, sometimes it is literally 0%. Now, I know some people are going to have a really hard time covering that 0%. Oh, that's a joke, and there are going to be other costs that come with it. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat this. My mother has owned multiple properties, and she's been a landlord for a while. I'll get into that. Look, owning a house is no walk in the park. I mean, even owning a car, you see how many times you have to take it to the mechanic. A lot of times it just feels like you're dumping money into it. Well, same goes for a house, but it's a lot more. I mean, there's so many more things that could go wrong, so I don't want to make it seem like it's this easy thing. And by renting, you really don't have to worry about that stuff because someone else will take care of it. But for people who are interested in putting in a little extra time, Not a little extra time, a lot of extra time. What you could do is you could look to buy a multi-unit home. This is such a cool way to make your debt work for you. This is not going to be nearly as easy as anybody on YouTube or in books is going to tell you. It's not. I've seen it firsthand, and I would encourage anybody who's looking to do this to have a lot more money stashed away than whatever is due at closing, because things can go very, very sideways. But let's go over an example. Let's say you get approved for $300,000 to buy a house, and you think to yourself, ooh, I could get myself a pretty nice house for $300,000. Well, guess what? You could also get yourself a decent unit inside of a 2 or 3 family and rent out the other 2 units. Even if this is a first-time home buyer, in many places you're still eligible to be a first-time home buyer even if there's 4 units. At the very least, I think that's what it is in my state. I think it caps at 4 units. And when you rent out those units, chances are it is covering your mortgage. And if you're really smart about it, you'll make sure that it cash flows, which means you will actually profit from owning this. And while you're making little bits of profit month by month, you are also gaining equity in the house as a whole. It is now becoming an asset of yours that eventually when you say, you know what, I don't want this anymore, you sell it and put that money in your pocket. Can't do that with renting, folks. Now keep in mind, I'm throwing out ideas here, and again, it is no walk in the park to have properties. In fact, I haven't even bought a property of my own, because at this current point in time, for me, it's not actually worth it. My case is actually a little interesting. At this current moment, I only pay $400 in rent, which when you do out the math, actually allows me to save a lot more money. Plus, I gotta be real with you guys, I don't think I have the time to manage a property at this moment. I currently have a job working with people's personal finance, and on top of that, I run a small business, and both of those things have my hands completely full, other than YouTube. So if you appreciate my time making these videos, make sure to subscribe, or at least leave a little thumbs up for the algorithm. Okay, so there's some little ideas right there. You could buy a place, rent out the units, profit off it, and at the end of the day, when you're done with it, sell it. Also, guys, keep in mind, more than likely, over the course of your mortgage, that property's value will have raised. So that's something else to keep in mind. Okay, guys, this is going to be my third little way that your debt actually could work for you. This one kind of involves a little bit of finesse and math if you really want it to work for you, but even if you don't want to stand around crunching numbers, it can actually help. The third way you can go into debt that isn't so bad, and I'll give you an example. Let's say I've been doing really good on my saving and I'm following the rules of threes like in my last videos, when all of a sudden life throws this crazy curveball at me. And I'm just like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. I'm about to take such a fat hit on my savings. And you know that by taking this hit, you're not gonna be in the clear. You're not gonna have 3 months of expenses saved up. So you're kind of like, what do I do? Do I put it on a credit card and just hope I get paid enough by the end of the month? No. Listen, maybe, but here's a better way. You can take your little bum down to your local financial institution, bank, credit union, whatever, and you can take what you have saved up and apply for a secured loan. Maybe you're like, oh, secured loan, I thought that was when you like have a car or something as collateral, taking the money out against your house or something. What are you talking about? No. You can take out a secured loan where you can give them the amount of money that you want to borrow for a very low interest rate. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're like, why would I borrow money when I have the money and I don't have to pay interest on it? Well, here's just one example of why you might want to do that. Well, it's simple. You can borrow that money and not have to worry at all because the exit door is right there. So once you get back to the spot where you have 3 times your monthly expenses saved back up, you can go over to the bank and say, hey, I want to be done with this. And they can close you out right then and there. It's pretty sweet, right? Not a lot of people talk about that one. Now, this is where you can kind of finesse it. Sometimes, with this type of loan, you can get an interest rate that is lower than the rate of inflation. Let's say the rate of inflation is like 4% that year, and you're borrowing that money at 2%. You basically borrowed free money. Now, that's just kind of the business way of looking at things. That might overly complicate it. Honestly, for all intents and purposes, let's just forget I said that. We're trying to keep it simple here. As SpongeBob says, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So yeah, we're just gonna keep it nice and simple. And it works out too if you want to borrow money for a business. Maybe you want to borrow money for a motorcycle and that gives you a better rate. Our whole thing here is we want to have as much money as possible. So to wrap things up, please just be super cautious anytime you borrow money. Try and make it work for you and minimize any risks. Don't take out a car loan and a mortgage and this and that and then have your expenses be tied up with your income. Always remember to run it like a business. Maximize revenue, minimize expenses, maximize profit. We love the profit zone. Okay guys, so that's a wrap for this video. Hope it was informative. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and please leave a thumbs up.